Hello, and as always, welcome back to the Pilot's Manual. Today, we are going to get into our first proper episode and talk about the Blackbeard. The IPSN Blackbeard is... The Blackbeard is the grappling poster boy of Lancer. He is able to grab and run away with enemies, kidnapping them for their allies, and beat the ever-living shit out of them. They are the grappler, and they are what... If you're coming from a class system like D&D, this would be the closest thing you could start getting towards a barbarian, if you will. Excuse me. He's fast, it's beefy, and if you think you're out of its range, nope, no you're not. No, you're always in Blackbeard's range. So, starting off, let's talk about its core stats, traits, and system. It's size 1, with a beefy starting HP of 12, with an armor of 1, which is nothing to scoff at. This is probably some of the best starting hull stats in the game. Beyond like the Lancaster, which has like 10 or 8 starting repair cap, the Blackbeard sports 5. He has a base save target of 10, which is pretty average, and a fairly low-end sensors of 5. But as we get into these traits and traits and systems, you're going to start to understand that being within range 5 is going to be where you're going to be. No target you should be targeting should be outside of range 5 for you, essentially. If you want to go for a hack beard, which I wouldn't recommend because in terms of its system stats, you have an E defense of 6, attack of -2, and an SP of only 5, which is about enough to get you everything within the 3 license level Blackbeard offers. And then maybe a GMS. It has a pretty low end agility of 8, not as bad as some, I think the lowest being about 6, but still, 8 you're going to get hit more often than not, but that's why you have a high HP, it's why you have the armor, and a pretty modest speed of 5. In terms of the worst stat Blackbeard has, that has to be its heat cap, which is only 4. That's the exact same as, as like a goblin. And I think some other strikers, like a Morning Cloak as well. Not good. Very, very not good. That only takes like maybe 3 regular hacks from any normal like fragment signal from an NPC, or that's like one witch getting handsy with you. So moving on from its core stats to its traits, we're going to start with the grapple cable. Now, grapple cable allows you to perform the grapple quick action with a maximum range of 5 rather than adjacency, which is what we discussed in the previous episode. When I mentioned that all of these frames interact and break the rules of the universal actions, this is what I mean. If you land this attack from any range beyond adjacency, you get dragged to your target via the most direct path to an adjacent space. If there is one that doesn't exist, then you can't do it, right? This is basically a free boost that doesn't consume a boost. So, for example, let's take this picture down now that we're done talking about the cores, and let's look at our example. So I have with me a little dummy Blackbeard to start showing off some of the utility of the systems. Let's say there's a sniper over here, and I want to close the gap with that sniper. I can move up to here with my speed, but additionally, if it's like, oh man, I can't get far enough to actually be adjacent with the sniper, I'm also not within threat of any of my weapons. The biggest threat the Blackbeard has in his base kit would be up to 2 with the nanocarbon sword, which we'll get into. So what I'll do is, I target this character, and I try and hit them with a grapple, right? And let's say, in this hypothetical, I get moved via the most direct path, which is like this. Via the most direct path is... it's fairly simple to explain. It's just like, see this? You just draw a straight line like you would with any line, and then you go to wherever the line would lead you. So that would be the most direct path from there. And then if I was down here, then the most direct path would be this hex, right? You can get trickier based on cover. Like if I was up here, but I hit the grapple, but there was like a little piece of like half-size terrain right there, I would probably go here as a free adjacent space, right? As the most direct free adjacent space. So here I am. I've moved up, and now this sniper is grappled. Pretty good. That sniper is the same size as me, so he can contest it, but we'll get into how Blackbeard can cheat that. And let's talk about their second trait. Lock Kill Subsystem allows Blackbeard to ignore the normal rules of grappling. Normally, when you are grappling, you can't take reactions, you can't boost. Blackbeard can boost and can take reactions while grappling, completely ignoring the usual problem. So as I said before, being able to grapple at range essentially gives you a freed up boost action to use sometimes. So I used my maximum movement to get here, and then I grappled, and now I have an extra quick action. I can boost, and since I've hit this grapple, and basically we're going to assume that I, as a Blackbeard, am considered a size larger than this sniper for reasons we'll get into once we start talking about its license levels. But I hit this grapple, I have control of the grapple, I then boost and move all the way back here, and I drag this sniper way out of position and kidnap him. It's great. You can just take these foolhardy attackers into the loving arms of your friends and family as the Genghis decides. The Blackbeard can take my Cone 5 Karaka Barothermic flamethrower, right? and kiss you both alive, but you know. When we get into theory crafting, we can talk a bit further about this kidnapping playstyle, because you can basically dedicate an entire build to this one concept of being able to grab opponents and then just walk away with them. It's very strong for like, it essentially turns the Blackbeard into a controller. Not as effective as some controllers, but very good all the same. Alright, and additionally, this also enables, so if we were to say, hypothetically, we're back over here, and I didn't actually use a quick action to boost. Let's say I just skirmished, and I dealt some damage to the sniper, and I'm just remaining grappled, right? We're just remaining in this grappled state. And let's say, hypothetically, there was another sniper here that isn't grappled. Yeah. And this sniper decides it wants to, like, move. Because I'm still grappling, and I have threat within this sniper, and they're trying to move, I can react to them, and I can hit them. Which means that this also kind of leans into an almost controller-esque space control with the Blackbeard, where you just throw yourself as deep as you possibly can into enemy lines, and then you just make it so that none of them can move. They have to respect you, or they will get smacked. This becomes even stronger the closer you are. So if they were like right here and they tried moving, I could activate a burst 1 flechette launcher, which we'll get into. We discussed this a bit in the last episode, but we'll get to it. Which would then deal multiple damage to multiple characters, right? So that's the second part of why Lock Kill Subsystem can be really good. You can either be a kidnapper, or you can become a tank, essentially, a real threat that has to be addressed. And the Blackbeard has these two amazing, beautiful, fantastic traits. And to cap off its three traits, we have Exposed Reactor. And Exposed Reactor is the balancing point for highlighting the Blackbeard's weakness, which is its engineering. The Blackbeard receives 1 difficulty on engineering checks and saves. So what this means in practice is if you get burned, you might be burned for longer, because burning requires a engineering check at the end of your turn to clear it. Burning is also AP damage, which makes it even more lethal to a Blackbeard. Additionally, if you start popping your heat cap multiple times, let's say you're at you're at 4 stress, right? And then you like popped your heat cap like twice, let's say. You know, this first one, meltdown. You're exposed. But on the second one, you're still exposed. But if hypothetically you rolled a 1 again, you would have had to make a engineering check or explode on your next turn. So Blackbeard does not handle being at low stress as well as some other frames might. It can handle structure a bit better, though I don't think anybody really handles structure too well. But regardless. And moving on to its mounts, the Blackbeard boasts of pretty impressive 3 mounts, that being a flex, a main, and a heavy mount, which gives it extremely flexible weapon combos. Like, it's really nice. It's very nice, especially because a flex can either be an aux mount or a main mount, which means you could field 2 main weapons and a heavy weapon, or you could field 2 aux weapons. I know on a main mount you could downgrade it to an aux. You could also use a GMS core power to turn it into a main aux, and you could have an aux that way as well. But the Blackbeard has weapons that can accommodate all of these mounts, and it's worth considering for what kind of build you're going for, what kind of weapon combos you'd like to play with. Also, because it has a heavy mount, it also means that the Blackbeard can field super heavy weapons. And also, since there's 3 mounts, that means that if the Blackbeard loses a mount while fielding this super heavy weapon, it won't be stuck in the position of certain frames that we'll get to way later down in Horus. I'm talking about the Hydra. If you lose 1 weapon mount, you won't be entirely screwed suddenly. And let's talk about the core power. Omni Harpoon, or the Assault Grapples. Now, in situations where the enemy is many and additionally playing very hard to get, you may use a quick action and your core power to activate the Omni Harpoon. The Omni Harpoon targets any amount of characters of your choice within range 5, and all of them must make a hull save. On failure, they first take 2d6 kinetic damage, and then are knocked prone, and then, to top it all off, they are pulled adjacent to you by the most direct path, and immobilized. Even on success, they would still take half damage, but do avoid what we will be referring to as the bone zone. A prone character will give accuracy to all attacks made against it, as I believe I mentioned in the previous episode, and an immobilized character cannot take any movement. Like a prone character who must take their full standard movement to stand, but also can't take movement, period. That means, essentially, you have dragged all of these poor bastards adjacent to you, and they are stuck to the floor. They can't even crawl away. They can't get up. They can't do anything. They can just stand there and fucking take it. Which gives you a million things to do to them at that point, and your allies as well. This core power, since it's a quick action, can be overcharged to turn it into a free action. Gives it a lot more flexibility than some of the other cores that are protocols or full actions, because both of those either force you to consider your action economy or your positioning. And there are a lot of really good scenarios in which this would be nice to have, a flexible core power, especially with one like this that requires you to use it. Like, quick action core powers are usually something you want to use in the middle of combat, while a protocol core power is usually one that you're probably going to be using at the very beginning. Obviously there is minutia in this, but it's nice to be able to overcharge for something this powerful. Now, this a use case I'd like to think about for this Omni Hook is there is something in Lancer called Grunts. It is an NPC template, and essentially Grunts can only ever have 1 HP, but because of that, they are essentially very spammable. So let's say you're in this situation where your DM, I don't know what you did, but you pissed them off. And they just decide, hey, what if, I don't know, like 12 sniper grunts? And you as a Blackbeard say, okay, 12 sniper grunts, that's cool. I want all of these guys to make a hull save. right? And for every failure, regardless of you pulling them adjacent to you or any of that, they're dead. They're dead. If they do succeed on that hull save, and this is the one weakness of this is that grunts don't take any damage on a successful save, or otherwise they would always die on every save they ever made, which would be so unfortunate, I suppose. So in situations like this, or even if these weren't grunts, still being able to pull many characters prone and immobilized around you is very nice, even if it is a save target, and even if the Blackbeard doesn't have the most stellar save target, with only starting at 10 and the save target only increasing with grit. So at license level 3, that save target would be like 12. Yeah, I think. But yeah, risk reward is what makes that sort of thing fun. So now that we've gone through the base frame traits and systems, let's discuss the gear you acquire when putting points into Blackbeard. I'm gonna just hover over these fellers right over here while I talk about this, and we'll get to them. Starting at tier 1, we gain the chain axe melee weapon and the synthetic muscle netting system. This is a really good tier 1. Both for Blackbeard and also for other people wanting to do things with license level 1. What's really nice is that sometimes, there's a lot of examples of this, but essentially this is what you'd refer to as a dip license level, where you don't want to commit to a Blackbeard, right? You don't plan on using a lot of Blackbeard stuff. Tortuga's also got a really good license level 1 dip. I think fucking Caliban, Zhang, these are all characters that you just put one license level in and nothing else to enable a system or weapon that will assist your build. And the chain axe is just which we'll get into first, actually. Yeah, the chain axe is beautiful melee, great melee. It only has one threat, which is its biggest weakness, but it's a main melee that can dish out solid, consistent D6 connect damage. And when you crit with it, you shred the target. And critting in Lancer is actually any roll above 20 and not just a nat 20. So crit effects in Lancer are actually a lot more powerful than First Blush. So if you are stacking accuracies on weapons via talents, say you have Duelist 1, which gives you an accuracy on your first attack with a melee weapon, and you are consuming Lock-On, that's 2d6 accuracy. If you're rolled a 14 and then you rolled a 6 on that d6, boom, that's a crit. You just shred your target, right? And shredded, that specific debuff is essentially a shredded character cannot gain resistances, nor does armor applied to damage dealt to them. So if you have a tankier NPC who's just, you're dealing damage to them, but nothing's like going through because you're dealing like 4 or 5 damage, and then they have 3 armor, so they're only taking like 1 to 2 damage. That helps stack that back up and really crack through them. It also means certain NPCs who have the ability to gain resistance via certain reactions will not be able to benefit from that. And I will say, with the chain axe, this will only shred the character until the end of your current turn, which means it's only good for the Blackbeard, or the chain axe user. It's a very selfish crit effect. It's essentially like, hey, I'm barraging and I hit a crit at the early part of my barrage, and now I am going to follow up with a million attacks that really hurt now. It's really good for just opening something up. The chain axe is good to just lead with, and then follow up with everything else to just unleash hell upon them. And because the Blackbeard has a flex anime, you could field 2 of these at once and just barrage with them all day and just fish for those, fish for those crits. And to top it all off, chain axe has reliable 2. Meaning it can never roll below 2 damage on a hit, and even when it misses, it does 2 damage anyways. So hit or miss, you will be doing 2 damage. This is really good against invisible characters, where hitting them is not guaranteed regardless, so rather than just hitting and whiffing and feeling bad, you can still deal reliable damage to them. And that's very nice. And then moving on to the synthetic muscle netting. This is Like, people will dip LL1 for a chain axe just because, one, it's a cool weapon, two, it's very nice, it's very consistent, but the real moneymaker for why this is a really good dip is synthetic muscle netting, because essentially you can turn any frame that you slap this on into a grappler, into a ram specialist without needing any traits like certain frames do. It is at a modest price of 2 SP and allows essentially both grappling and ram, as mentioned in the first episode, require you to either be the same size as your target or larger. With synthetic muscle netting, you are considered the same size as targets larger than you, and when grappling targets or ramming targets of a smaller or same size as you, you are considered one size larger and automatically control the grapple because you are bigger than them. This is a real bully of a system, allowing you to kidnap a size 1 who ostensibly should be the same size as you, but aren't now, and you can just kidnap them uncontested, because, yeah, and additionally, the system states that it doubles your frames lifting and dragging capacity. That doesn't have a combat effect, but you can evoke it for accuracy on narrative or frame checks, similar to personalizations. So, it's something you can be creative with. It's something that you can apply both in narrative and in combat, and for that, I really like this system, both mechanically and narratively. I think it does a lot of good work. That's sometimes a lot of the Lancer stuff doesn't cross over with the narrative, but it's nice when it does. And usually only the GMS systems do that, but this is an instance in which a licensed system does it as well. So for only 2 SP, you can slap synthetic muscle netting on essentially anyone and become an absolute fucking asshole. You can just grab and smash. You can be a goblin and you can grapple anybody you want. I mean, you won't win those grapples, but you can. Synthetic muscle netting on a goblin is actually my new build, with Daisy Cutter as well. Moving on to license level 2, we have a double weapon license level and the Blackbeard frame itself. So, as you probably are already aware, you don't get the actual frame until the second license level. So, the previous LLs would probably be slapped on an Everest, or a Chungamalunga, or a Sagamartha. Sagamartha? Yeah, sorry. And I'll say all of those are good on any of those frames except maybe the Chungo, because it's a hacker mech. It doesn't really want to be that close, but why not, It's funny because you could slap somebody with a chain axe and then system lock them down and knock them prone and then just get dirtier on them. The hell, you could ram them, knock them prone, and then hit them with your system lockout and then push them. But I am getting into a different frame completely, and I think I want to do a completely separate GMS episode where I just fucking talk shop about them, because I don't want to do an episode style like this because I don't have license levels and I feel like I don't have anything interesting to say about them really in this same thing. So I'm just going to do a full GMS, all the universal systems and weapons and frames, and just do it all in one without even writing a script, honestly. Because most of them are self-explanatory, I'd like to think. It's how they're designed. So, yeah, license level 2. For this license level, we have a unique auxiliary CQB called the Bristle Crown Flechette Launcher, which we touched on in episode 0 because it has the burst template. And the nanocarbon sword, which would probably be considered the Wii weapon if the Terashima blade didn't exist. So starting with the Bristle Crown Flechette Launcher, it has the unique property of being a ranged weapon that doesn't deal with difficulty while engaged. Additionally, it deals bonus damage to grapple targets or biologicals. So essentially, it would normally deal 1 damage, but if you are grappling the target or it's biological, it will deal 3 kinetic instead of 1. And since it's an auxiliary, you can get a lot of them on your frame. So you could spam on the flex mount and get a total of 6 guaranteed damage on hit. And if you're grappling them, you've probably knocked them prone at some point. You've probably, if using one of the IPSN core powers or using Duelist, there are many ways to get a character prone and then getting accuracy on a Flechette Launcher. There's also the talent called Vanguard, but we'll get into that more with theory crafting. And you can definitely pop off with these and get some great value with them using your core power as well, because then everyone is about to be adjacent to you, and you can, do a surprising amount of crowd control. The Blackbeard usually, with all of its other weapons, is only really good at focusing down one character. The nanocarbon sword can be retrofit to attack many characters at once because of a talent called Executioner that we'll have to get into later as well. But this thing on its face can handle multiple targets at once, and that's pretty nice, especially if you're using that second playstyle we described of grappling up and just using your reactions to pop off on people. And it's not the best Ox of the game, not even close. The hand cannon exists in the rally, and we'll probably get to that very soon. But, a few talent points here or there, and it's very nice. And it also technically saves you from having to spend a talent point on Combined Arms 2, which would do the same thing for all ranged weapons, essentially. Like, you never have to deal with engaged, or any difficulty from engaged. But since you're playing, in this example, an LL3 Blackbeard only, you don't have any other ranged weapons you need to worry about engagement with. But we'll get into the theory crafting, and we'll talk about Combined Arms 3. And now, let's get to the nanocarbon sword. This one's a lot simpler to talk about than the Bristle Crown Flechette launcher, because it's just good. Its biggest downside is that it's only threat 2, and other heavy melees have a threat like 3. Like, for example, the Baylor's Whip. But, as the Blackbeard, threat is of no object to you. You are going to be in people's faces regardless. It deals 3 reliable, meaning on hit it can never deal less damage than 3, as we said before with the Chain Axe, but the reliable 3 on hit is redundant because the minimum damage of this fucking thing is 5 kinetic, because it deals a d6 plus 4 damage on hit. So, that 3 reliable kinetic only really applies, on miss, but still very good. Just a step above the Chain Axe, and if you were to barrage with a main mount and then a heavy mount, that's 5 reliable, even if you beef everything. That's more than half health on a tier 1 scout. Hell, I think that's half health on a tier 2 scout as well. This weapon is a blast with Executioner, a talent we'll get into more, as I mentioned before, but essentially it lets you attack a lot with a heavy weapon, and it lets you just fucking keep swinging, basically. And, mix that with Skirmisher and Duelist, and you have an excellent array of melee options to keep you just rolling. And moving on to License Level 3, let's talk about the really niche systems of Blackbeard and Reinforced Cabling and SEHKMET NHP. License Level 3, in my opinion, are always a little niche. They usually are either like... they're always very powerful in a respect, or very interesting at the very least. But a lot of the time, and some of my favorite License Level 3s, that is, they completely change the playstyle of the character when you equip them. You kind of have to build yourself around them a little bit. But also, in some of them, they're like requirements of the build, and we'll get into some of those frames and the struggles of only getting good at License Level 3. So, starting with Reinforced Cabling, this system is at a modest cost of 2 SP, giving the Blackbeard or anybody who slaps this on some unique mobility options, and an alright way of making targets prone. The free action, it's split into a free action and a quick action, essentially. As a free action, you can perform Grapple Swing, which allows you to, when you're taking your standard movement, fly, as long as you're going in a straight line. And similar to how some systems you may boost when you fly, this allows you that with a standard movement as a free action once per turn. And what that means is you ignore difficult terrain, but it has some stipulations to it. And one is that at the end of this movement, you must be adjacent to a piece of terrain or cover. If you fly up to a certain height, you may stick at that height as long as you're adjacent to a terrain or piece of cover. And if you fly straight into the ceiling, you stick to the ceiling. You just hang from it. This is interesting. It's extremely odd to me. It's alright for getting in on your opponents. Since flying allows you to ignore difficult terrain, you don't have to deal with that as a Blackbeard, even though you're already pretty speedy. But it requires a piece of terrain, and it's very niche and map dependent compared to GMS systems that allow you to fly when you boost, or just straight up like allow you to fly for heat, which isn't good for a Blackbeard. Taking heat in order to fly is not very good for Blackbeard since you have such a low heat cap. So in that way, reinforced cabling is better than the Type 1 flight system, I believe is what that is. But it's not much better than the rapid boost, the rapid jump jets. And I think if it didn't also come with this quick action, I would be hesitant to take it. And that quick action is called Drag It Down, and it lets you force a hull contest against a character within range 5. The loser of this contest is knocked prone. As a Blackbeard, you should have like 1,000,000 hull to make this contest easy. And we talked about bolster in the previous episode. If you wanted to have somebody bolster you as well, go for it. But there are faster ways to make people prone as a Blackbeard, and some of them are free actions. So it's not a bad option, and I think the most immediate use case of it is, hypothetically, somebody's at range 5 of you and you want to grapple them, but they have a high evasion, like a Hornet, who has like an evasion of 16. So you force a hull contest, and the Hornet has a bad hull. And you win that contest because you have like 4 or 5 hull on it, and you smack them down to the ground prone. One, that stops them from being able to take more than at least a boost if they want to get away. 2, like that's if you miss your grapple. But 2, if you do hit your grapple, you get dragged adjacent to them. Now you're grappling them. Now they're in a situation they really don't want to be in, and that's nice. But once we get into talents, you'll see that this becomes also a little redundant, and it's nice that it's cheap. It's cheap and it has 2 options with it that are both interesting, if not niche. So there's no reason not to just have it sit in your systems unless there's something that's absolutely going to be better for your build. But like at higher LLs, it just grows more and more redundant. Now let's talk about the Raging Bull in the room. SEHKMET is an NHP, and NHPs are powerful, intelligent, living code that Union has shackled and reprogrammed socially to essentially use them as living information processors and assistants on the battlefield. They do a lot. Each NHP has a unique personality, either despite or because of their conditioning, and NHPs have a habit, especially on the battlefield, of unshackling these conditionings and systems. So not only does this system come at a steeper 3 SP, but if you are structured or stressed, you must roll to cascade. And on a nat 1, your NHP goes berserk and removes control of your frame from you and turns into a neutral NPC that acts on its own interests. It is no longer recognizable as the NHP you previously knew, though that personality probably does influence its actions slightly. And this is something all NHPs are capable of, but with Blackbeard's NHP, the SEHKMET, cascading or not, you will not have control of your frame. You can either just choose to let SEHKMET take control of your frame, or SEHKMET can just take it from you when it cascades. So to activate SEHKMET, you must spend a protocol, meaning positioning when activating this is very important, and it's more important than literally any goddamn protocol in the game, in my opinion, if you value not eviscerating your allies. Essentially, when you activate this, SEHKMET takes over, and he spends your turn for you, using a set of guidelines and rules, and when he's active, he's just fighting for you, even if you're not in the frame, even if you're dead. So you gain 2 flat passive bonuses. All your melee crits deal a d6 bonus damage, and you may skirmish as a free action once per round with a melee weapon. Only melee weapons. Which is really, really good. Really, really good. Especially if you're fishing for crits with like the chain axe for shred. That's just gonna keep fucking, what's the word I'm looking for? that's just going to keep snowballing into better and better rewards. SEHKMET on your turn follows these rules for how it spends these actions. It will use all available actions and movement to get itself to the closest character, and SEHKMET does not discriminate between friend or foe. So if an ally is closer to you than any of your enemies, sorry, Goblin, you're about to get hack and slashed. We're about to peel you open like a can. And friend or foe, once SEHKMET closes the gap, it will use remaining actions, or if it only used its standard movement, all actions, to attack with melee weapons, or melee attacks, prioritizing melee weapons. So if you have no melee weapons, SEHKMET will use improvised attacks, grappling, and ramming to do what it wants to do. And it will completely ignore ranged weapons. It can't use them. It just can't take ranged attacks, period. But I will say, this does not apply to grappling from range 5, because that's not a ranged attack, that is a melee attack still. It's a unique melee attack that just has a bigger range than normal, like as if it had a threat 5, even though it uses the term range, because melee attacks can't, or the grappling can't have a threat, it's not ranged per se, since it uses all the same grappling rules. So if SEHKMET were to move, boost, and still be 5 away from your target, what it might do is grapple from range 5 in order to get in on that target. But if there's a case scenario in which SEHKMET is like at range 15 from the nearest target, I'd love to see it. I've never seen that happen, but that is something to keep in mind, that your ranged grapple is still an option that SEHKMET will be willing to take. And if your DM disagrees with you, send him this video. Send him to me. I'll handle him. You also can still overcharge. That's one of the things that you just completely control, is whether or not you overcharge on your turn. But you get that free action that SEHKMET gets to pick what it is. And guess what he's going to pick? He's going to pick to swing that fucking sword. Or if he's not close to an enemy, he's going to fucking choose the boost towards that enemy. He will not let you take any actions. And as I said before, the Blackbeard continues, and SEHKMET will fight as long as SEHKMET is active. It does not care about you, if you're alive, if you're dead, if you're off planet, if you're on planet. SEHKMET will continue. SEHKMET will persist. SEHKMET is the crowning jewel of going fucking hard. And you can, with certain setups, essentially let the NHP do the whole fight for you while taking your own pilot actions to assist them, essentially, which is really risky, because if you're too close to SEHKMET, he'll run up to you and he'll stomp on you. So, you know, risk and reward. I'd have to... I haven't looked into this part. I probably should have before I started recording, but I need to double check how Black Thumb works, because I can't remember Black Thumb's pilot actions or those are mech actions, because if they're mech actions, then SEHKMET will take them for you and simply not let you. But if they're pilot actions, you could hypothetically just keep repairing your Blackbeard while Black Thumbing. I mean, that also puts you at risk of being shot, but you know, tomato tomato. Alright, so that gets us through all 3 license levels. So let's talk about like a basic build and then some theory crafting. So here with us today, I have these 3 Blackbeards, and they are all being piloted by Grip, who is at license level 3 and wants to show us what a Blackbeard only build at license level 3 might look like. I have 3 versions, so we're just gonna get into it, and I'm gonna let you know this section is less scripted, and it's mostly just gonna be me just talking, you know, because you know that's easier for me than trying to write this. So I have a little crash course set up to explain all these builds and what they might look like in combat. We have this first one, which is Basebeard, just the most simple, flexible Blackbeard with no real particular focus on anything beyond just doing effective striker things. SEHKMET Taxi, which is, hi, I don't want to play the game actually, I would like my NHP to take control. And then we have I Kidnapped You, which is the Kidnapper build. This one actually has a bit more of an investment into speed, and rather than these two, which are all hull. and focuses more on maneuverability and just getting in, getting out. If I had some more license levels, I probably would have put Skirmisher 3 on this, but we can talk about that later. So let's start with Blackbeard. Fun for the whole family. 24 HP because I dropped 5 hull into it. Still only 8 evasion, 60 defense. Save target's 12 at license level 3, so yeah, I was correct. And you know, Grid 2, which you're swinging for your grapples with. So I have equipped the Bristle Crown Flechette launchers, 2 of them, on my flex weapon mount. My main weapon mount is the chain axe, and the heavy weapon mount is my nanocarbon sword. I took my synthetic muscle netting, I took reinforced cabling, I took SEHKMET, right? This is using everything the Blackbeard has to offer, with no particular focus in any of them, except just using the tools you have available to you through him. So let's talk talents. Actually, first, let's talk core bonus, actually, because this is going to be very important to note. Now, where the hell do they hide the core bonus? I think it's actually in the pilot sheet, which I will say, I love Foundry. I don't exactly like how they organize this information. Edward Teach. So this first one, this pilot is using Titanomachy Mesh, which is an IPSN core bonus, and for those of you who might not be aware, core bonuses essentially work. Every 3 license level, you can pick up a core bonus. If you have 3 license levels in one company, in any of their frames, just 3 license levels in them, you can pick up one of their core bonuses for every 3 license levels you have in them, right? If you don't have any in any of that, and you've like split your license amongst multiple companies, you can still pick from like the several GMS ones, and we'll actually talk about a GMS core bonus I slapped on. I believe I kidnapped you, and SEHKMET Taxi actually, because I wanted to show a variety. So once per round, when you successfully ram or grapple a mech, you can ram or grapple again as a free action. Additionally, when you knock targets back with melee attacks, you knock them back 1 additional space. Since ram is considered a special melee attack, that also applies to ram, and you can knock people back 2 with ram. Not that you really want to, since you're grappling and you want to keep people adjacent to you, but that is of note. That's actually more important for some other frames that really love to ram, but you know, we'll get to that. So now let's talk about the talents, starting with Duelist. We took Duelist 3 at license level 3. We took Duelist 3 for this build. Gain +1 accuracy on the first melee attack you make with a main melee weapon on your turn. So that would be essentially just the chain axe. So I would probably lead with the chain axe, I get an accuracy with it, I'm probably shooting the crit with it so that my following attacks can deal more damage. Once per round, when you hit with a main melee weapon, you gain 1 Blade Master die, a d6, up to a maximum of 3 Blade Master dies. Right, and you can spend them on all of these, but these aren't really what we are big on. We like these Blade Master dice, but we're not spending them on this. We might, if we need to, on parry or deflect, if we need to have resistance on things without wanting to brace, basically. Holy shit. I'm just realizing I never mentioned brace. Oh shit. Let's do that real quick. Let's do that real quick. Okay, hypothetically, this cataphract runs up on me and he does 1,000,000 damage. As a reaction, I can brace to taking that damage, and then I have resistance to it. And after you brace, you can only either move or take 1 quick action on your next turn, and you can't take reactions after bracing. It is a last-ditch effort for skirmishers. For certain other classes that have off turns, it can be quite useful for not taking so much damage. I think the rally kind of sits in a middling area where bracing is not always the worst option for them, but it's always not the most efficient one. It's usually like I made a mistake and I need to not get hard punished for this. I want to try and soften this blow at the sacrifice of a less fortuitous action coming on the next turn. If you're a striker like Blackbeard, you probably don't want to be doing it, and that's why you take Duelist 2, is to avoid having to do that, so you have other methods of reducing damage against you, beyond just armor, right? So yeah, there's that. Yeah, there's Brace, and then Blade Master and Deflect, which are 2 reactions against melee attacks and range attacks, respectively. We're in Duelist for Unstoppable. Once per round, when you hit with a melee attack on your turn, you may spend a Blade Master die to immediately grapple or ram your target as a free action. So that's one grappler ram as a free action. And if we look over at Titanomachy Mesh, which allows you to grapple or ram after landing a grapple or ram as a free action, that's 2 grapple or ram free actions. And then on your turn, you can just, as a quick action, take a 3rd grapple or ram action. Hell, you could ram your target, pop Unstoppable with that being the melee attack you hit, ram them again, and then as your 3rd Titanomachy Mesh, just grapple them, right? And if you have certain systems that let you do damage when you ram characters, that's really fun. And you might just ram them a 3rd time for the fucking hell of it. So that's why we take Unstoppable, is to combo it with Titanomachy Mesh, and for the Blackbeard being the Blackbeard, who wants to grapple, who wants to lean into that hard, and who's going to be swinging main melees in order to cash out with those. So Veni, you gain +1 accuracy to melee attacks against immobilized or slowed targets. Here's a fun detail about grappled targets. If you are bigger than them, they are both immobilized and slowed. Well, they're immobilized if you're bigger than them. They're just slowed if they're not, which means as long as you're grappling somebody, Veni procs accuracy. It's also a bit more flexible than Brawler one down here, but we took both because guess what? Multiple sources of accuracy are really nice. And here's the real moneymaker here is Vidi. Once per scene, you can make a Valiant Charge as a free action on your turn, moving up to twice your speed and ignoring terrain penalties. This is what I was talking about when I said that talents really quickly make reinforced cabling very redundant. Vidi just does it harder and better. It has a similar stipulation, but rather than being adjacent to terrain, it makes you adjacent to hostile characters as its requirement, which as a grappler mech and as a just general melee mech, that's pretty much where you want to be. I mean, hypothetically, with using a free action to grapple onto a piece of terrain, you at least would probably put yourself within range 5 and you'd be able to grapple them that way, but still. Another important detail about this is that characters you end your turn adjacent to become slowed until the end of their next turn, which means you get accuracy on them with Veni, which means if your first action against them is a grapple, you have accuracy on your grapple, and there's not a lot of great ways to get accuracy on grapple, and that's a really good one. So, hold and lock, very simple. You gain +1 accuracy on all melee attacks against targets you are grappling. Pretty nice. Bad thing about it is that, since it's all melee attacks, and Veni is the same way, you actually don't get any accuracy with your flechette rifles on them, despite the fact you get bonus damage on them for being grappled. So in a case that we wanted to use flechette rifles, we would probably actually dip into the Vanguard talent tree if that's what we wanted to focus on. I think one of these frames might have done that. If they didn't, then we'll talk about Vanguard. Okay. We'll talk about... This build's funny. This build's dumb. Okay, we'll talk about Vanguard later. So, let me run you through what a typical turn for this kind of Blackbeard build might look like. You have a pretty extensive flowchart of things that you can do, and, you know, they're all pretty good. Let's say that this is round start. We're going up against 3 characters, a Rainmaker, a Cedar, and a Cataphract. That Rainmaker is a problem. That Rainmaker is dangerous. I have a speed of 5, and I have Pankrati 2. I have Vidi. So I tell my teammates, hey, let me go first, and I'm gonna make a fucking play. You free action at the start of your turn, move up to twice your speed, which has a speed of 5, that's 10, and you do this number. This puts you adjacent to both the Cedar and the Rainmaker. And here's what you do. You do this. Now you have accuracy on both of these fuckers. You want to grapple the Rainmaker first, because grappling the Rainmaker is probably going to be more important. And you... Actually, what you'll actually want to do, this is important to order it this way, and you'll see why, is you want to make a chain axe attack against either the Rainmaker or the Cedar. If you want to reduce the Cedar's resistances, which I do believe it has some armor, then you might swing. Yeah, it has 2 armor total, so you might want to swing at the cedar first to hopefully reduce its resistances to what you may be doing to it next, right? And also just it's good to start chunking that thing, because what you're about to do to the Rainmaker is going to be criminal. So you get 1 accuracy from Duelist because this is your first attack with a main melee weapon, and you also get another accuracy from Veni for 2 accuracy total. And that's a hit. You could have fished for a crit there, but yeah, that's a hit. You then gain your Duelist die, right? So now we're going to do, that was our quick action. We're going to, as our second quick action, target this Rainmaker and fucking try and grapple them, right? We only get 1 accuracy of this because of Veni, which is plenty good. That's a 13 to hit. That's a grapple. So, boom, grappled. Guess what? Free action, Titanomachy Mesh. Actually, no. My apologies. Actually, you could do this in either order because it's a Blackbeard, but you'll see what's about to happen. Free action, Titanomachy Mesh. I decide to grapple another character. I'm gonna go for you. Or I could also ram them, but in this case I'm going for grapples. Get accurate on it. That's a crit. That's a grappled cedar. So that's 2 grapples. Now I'm gonna spend that Blade Master die I just got from attacking the cedar earlier, and guess what? I'm gonna target a grapple against the Cataphract. Currently I'm considered size 2, so I am now matched with these guys. So, currently matched with these guys. So basically, after this turn, it'll be funny, but after this turn, I'll technically have lost control of the grapple, but I'll have basically moved them all into 1 spot. So, I grapple cable, use range 5, free action, spend unstoppable, attacking the Cataphract. Show me the money. Show me the cash. Get, do I have any accuracy on this? No, I don't think I have any accuracy on this. Still a hit. Guess what? I get dragged to the most adjacent space to these guys. And that is just movement, baby. I think that was right here. Yeah. And guess what? 3 grappled characters. Technically grappling a character size larger than me now. Double check to make sure I got that right. Yeah. And when you grapple or ram larger targets, you count as the same size as the largest opponent. When you grapple or ram opponents of the same size or smaller, you count as at least 1 size larger. Additionally, your lifting and dragging capacity is double. At least 1 size. Yeah. So I've put myself into an interesting position, where now I am completely surrounded by those I love. And I don't really technically lose control of this grapple until the beginning of my next turn. At the beginning of the NPC turn. So what I can do is I can free action just end these grapples, right? And I specifically want to take like the Rainmaker with me, right? Free action end those grapples. Those slowed still on the Sieger, but slowed would end on the Cataphract. I just used him, to get where I need to go, right? And then I could just, like... I really, really wanted... I'm like, oh, I really, really want these guys to be over there. Overcharge. Boost. Now they're all the way over here now. They went, like, from all the way up there to now all the way back here. And they are completely out of position. Right? So that's what it looks like on a standard Blackbeard turn when you're really going for grapples and you're going for assaults. That's like a specific, like, that's almost just me copying the kidnapping build, though this kidnapping one's technically a little better at what it does. But let's say I'm in the same situation where I've grappled both targets and I still have I've got a free action, right? Let's say that I, instead of grappling that Cataphract to do some silly shit, I instead did something that was probably a bit more optimal for what I'm going for, and actually just, and would require me not to overcharge, and I actually just rammed the, not Dustbunny, I rammed this Rainmaker. I absolutely fucking obliterated this Rainmaker as my free action, right? Just because I'm really causing problems right now. That's grit. That's accuracy. Boom. Hit. Prone. Immobilized. Right? And hell, I could still overcharge, and then I could skirmish with my Bristle Crown Flechette launchers, right? And then I could select both of these guys, and I could just go. I have accuracy, and I also have Vidi, and then I have Grappler. That's 3 accuracy on both of them. Like, oh, those are melee attacks. I still have accuracy on the Rainmaker for being prone. Yeah, boom. 2 crits. They both take 3 damage because they're being grappled by me. Dust Bomb reduces that to 1 because he has 2 armor, but the Rainmaker takes that on its head. And let's do another one. Still have an accuracy on the Rainmaker. A miss on the Rainmaker, but still another 1 on Dust Bomb. So this that's kind of what it would look like. I also could have foregone grappling Dust Bomb here and instead just let him be slowed and instead used my first Titanomachy Mesh Ram to ram and knock prone this guy, and then with my additional quick action I could have actually used knockdown or knock prone on this guy, right? I could have gone out there and I could have used drag down so that the Cataphract isn't able to run down my allies while I handle their friends, right? And then I'd force this whole contest. The Cataphract only has an okay hull. I have a fucking amazing hull because I'm God. A 15. Respectable. Not amazing. This is beatable, you know? And it is, but let's pretend he didn't, and now he's prone. Good turn, right? That's one of the bigger issues with so many sucker save related things like that, is that sometimes you just completely whiff. But yeah, that's kind of what the flexibility of this build offers you, is it offers you a lot of chance to do something funny and cool, and chances to do something really goofy. You know, it gives you everything. I could have also additionally, after going up here with Vidi, just done grapple Omni Cable and just brought all of these guys adjacent to me, and then barrage overcharge core power, bring them all adjacent to me, barrage with Bristle Crown, and then my nanocarbon blade. Right? That's also an option. Now let's talk about the second build, SEHKMET's Taxi. SEHKMET's Taxi is flexing with a main melee mount on its flex for 2 chain axes and a nanocarbon heavy melee. We have SEHKMET, we have reinforced cabling, we have custom paint job, we have personalizations. These are 2 GMSs. We take custom paint jobs so that we structure hopefully less, and we don't have to roll cascade. And personalizations just so we have that little bump of HP. That puts us at 26 HP, 1 armor. Normal speed, normal everything else. But let's look at these talents. We only took Partisan for Duelist, so we have 1 accuracy on our main melee weapon on our turn. But we did take Pankrati 2 still, and we did take Brawler 1, but now we have Executioner 3. So with Executioner 3, once per round when you hit with a heavy or super heavy melee weapon, you can make another melee attack with the same weapon as a free action against a different character within threat and line of sight. This deals half damage if successful. The first time in a round that you perform a critical hit with a heavy or super heavy melee weapon, you deal 3 kinetic damage to all characters and objects of your choice within threat, other than the one you just attacked. Once per round when you miss with a melee attack, you reroll it against a different target within threat and line of sight. So let's say we did something similar to this guy's turn, and we were over here with Pankrati on our turn, and we swung around and we dealt some damage. Maybe we rammed and grappled this guy, and maybe we just let the Cedar be slowed, and then the Cedar, somebody took their turn over here, some things happen, people are moving, everything's going down, I react to that, this Rainmaker tries to escape, it's a failure, God is dead. And I'm in this situation. Start of my turn. You all know what I'm doing? I'm gonna stop playing the game real quick. SEHKMET, right? give everything over to SEHKMET. I've got him to where he needs to be. Now he gets to do what he wants to do. So I don't need to move towards anybody. So what SEHKMET's going to do, he's going to look at the situation. He's going to say, okay, full action barrage. You get to select the targets at in this junction because, well, you could. The DM could also just select your targets for you, though I would say that that's probably not what you want to do. And let's just do Chain X against this dude down here, the Cedar Dust Bomb. And we're going to say, okay, we're barraging. Actually, what you could do, but I don't think we're going to do this. You could free action Chain X and then skirmish Chain X, because you get a free action attack with your SEHKMET protocol, but we're gonna get to that. So just regular accurate because of duelist, just smack them. Critical hit. When you crit with damage die, you roll both and you take the highest. Crit shredded. That's what we wanted to see. No, it doesn't even have 2 armor anymore. So we just dealt 4 to them, then 2 armor applies, and then shredded applies. Though I think actually players choose that order of operation, so you could choose to shred him first and then deal damage. So it's a little trickier with VTTs where everything happens at the same time, because, you know, then you don't really get to pick the order of operations. They just get presented to you in a order. And it feels a little weird, but yeah, that's technically how it works per my limited memory. And now we're going to do nanocarbon sword, heavy melee, and we're going to pick our friend over here, because we want him to die. And we get like two sources of accuracy. Vidi, hold and lock. And yeah, we swing upon, we crit. You want to know what that means? Activate wide arc cleave. And guess what? 3 to you, and you take full 3 because you don't got any armor. And 3 to you, but you get resisted because of point defense, which gives them resistance to the closest character, which is me. So that's fair, you know. And then I get to activate wide arc cleave. The first time in a round that you perform, oh yeah, that's wide arc cleave. Backswing cut. I mean, once per round when you hit with this heavy or super heavy weapon, melee weapon, you can make another melee attack with the same weapon as a free action. So we're gonna do that. We're just gonna free action attack again with this melee weapon. And guess what? It has to be a different target, I believe. Yeah. So we're gonna choose the Cedar over here, who's been shredded. And this is gonna deal half damage. I do believe this. Yeah, I get 1 accuracy because of Vidi, so I should have 2 on the other one. But you know, potatoes. And that's an 11 to hit, reduced to 3 because it's backswing cut. And then free action, I'm going to choose the skirmish with my nanocarbon sword, right? Because I'm SEHKMET. Also, this would have dealt an extra d6, this would have dealt an extra d6 because we're doing SEHKMET. So make sure you don't forget that, like I just did. Bonus d6, this could have been upwards of 10 damage, this could have been upwards of like 12, right? And that would make the Rainmaker dead by now, right? So it's always important to remember those kinds of things and not accidentally let them fizzle. Yeah, so I'm going to skirmish again with the Rainmaker using my nanocarbon sword, because I get to do that now. And I get an accurate because they're prone, I get an accuracy because of Vidi, and I get an accuracy because of hold and lock. So yeah, 27. I already activated my wide arc cleave, so this doesn't proc again, but I get to roll a d6 again. That's absolutely a dead Rainmaker. I'm popping off, I'm dealing damage. In the case where I had remembered I dealt an extra d6 as Rainmaker and I had killed it, I would have just attacked the Cedar again, and I would have made the Cataphract have to deal with me next. The only downside of that is that the Cataphract on their turn probably pretty easily, yeah, just get farther away from me than my allies could be. And in cases like that, that sucks. But also, they are within my threat. I would just smack the ever-living shit out of them. Now, if we hypothetically had missed that attack, we would do no escape. Once per round when you miss with a melee attack, you re-roll it against a different target within threat line of sight. So rather than hitting the Rainmaker if I missed it, then I would have swapped back over to the Cedar and smacked it with my nanocarbon. Right. That's SEHKMET. Get everybody around you and fucking try and just obliterate them. Just get on top of somebody and fucking murder them. And if people are surrounding you, good. Good. You need people surrounding you. That's how you get your shit off. You know? So this thing benefits from being completely surrounded. I would have used the flechette launchers if they weren't just CQBs, because SEHKMET only wants melee, so I only equipped us with melees. And this, having both a flex and chain X main mount, despite the fact I'll probably only ever be attacking with these two, is because if I do structure, and I lose a weapon mount, I can just lose either one of these two without losing like the core build. It would require me to structure twice and lose a weapon twice. If I lost a sensor system, I could lose, not personalization. Actually, I could lose personalizations, I suppose. But I couldn't lose. I could also lose reinforced cabling rather than losing SEHKMET or, well, I can't lose CPJ, but you know, there are buffers to you losing the core of your build. So let's talk about this last build. Let's talk about this last build called I Kidnapped You. This is 22 HP, and a speed of 6 now. So this guy, just kidnap anybody, really. Just fucking grab him and take him away. What I would recommend. So, there are a couple options. Let's say, first thing I want to do, I see that there's somebody within range 5 of me on start of turn. I go, okay, bet, grapple. Oh, let's talk about the talents real quick. Duelist 3, we've already seen this. Pankrati 2, we've seen that a lot. Brawler 1. Executioner and Exemplar. Exemplar, we'll talk about Exemplar and why I took this. It's not a talent that gets a lot of use, but I think you'll find it an interesting support melee talent to use as a Blackbeard whose interest is completely in locking down a character and ripping them away from their allies and bringing them into the loving embrace of your own. So I say bet. I don't even need to move on this turn now. I rolled a grapple this dude. Let's pretend I hit. Let's pretend everything's going right and I hit. And I'm here. Now let's do Pankrati. So, because of Pankrati requiring me to be adjacent to an enemy, and because I'm grappling them, and because I control this grapple, because I'm considered larger than them, because of synthetic muscle netting, I can just Pankrati away. Like, I like... it's just... Yeah, there's nothing that really... Yeah. Doesn't really stop any. Nothing that really stops you from doing that. Just take him with you. Just take him to hell. If there were more map, I could have taken him further, and I still have a quick action. So, like, quick action, like, fucking chain axe, right? And I'll also explain the core power once we come to it, but chain axe, right? Oh, crumb. What the hell was the SEHKMET's fucking core bonus? We'll get to that after that. Yeah, we'll refer back to it. It's not supposed to have two of these. Add opcal, okay. I think maybe one of these, because I just would copy the previous one and then try and rebuild it. Maybe one of these has too many talents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I feel like Executioner shouldn't even be here. Okay, whatever. Pretend Executioner's not here. I don't think this one's actually supposed to be here. Just a problem with using Con and being well done. But Exemplar, Brawler, Pankrati, Duelist, right? I gain accuracy on melee attacks against mobilizers and targets. So, you know, I gain accuracy on this upcoming chain axe. Bang, I deal 2 reliable damage. Free action, because I have integrated weapon mod, which allows me to put an auxiliary weapon that's an integrated weapon on my turn that allows me to attack with it as a free action whenever I make an attack, once per turn. Then attack with my Bristle Crown, which doesn't benefit from that. Crit, 3 damage because they're grappled. Oh wait, they're not grappled. But, oh wait, they are grappled. Right, that's the first thing I did on my goddamn turn. I grappled them. They would have had a second accuracy on this then because of Brawler. So, because I hit with the Chain Axe, and because I attacked with either of these, I can, as a reaction, hit this guy with an Exemplar's Mark. And Exemplar's Mark simply lets my allies reroll attacks that they miss as a reaction, the Valiant Aid reaction, right? So on either of these characters' turns, if they're like, I want to attack this guy that you just kidnapped and brought into our domain, and they miss, reaction, consume Valiant Mark, reroll it, hit this motherfucker, kill this bastard, right? Very, very useful. Just drag them down and make sure that even when you miss, you don't, right? Maybe don't take the cataphract sometimes, but you know, take what you can get and just make it their problem. Additionally, if I wanted to, if for some reason I was more confident in a drag down versus just ramming them, I could just drag them down while they're next to me, even, because this is just a hull check against a character. All they have to be is within range. The adjacency doesn't mean anything other than how effective is it at that point. Oh, and I took an RBJ. Yeah, RBJ. When you boost, you fly, which means that, you know, boosting allows me to really get even further. It ignores difficult terrain in the same way that reinforced cabling does. So I could ignore difficult terrain by flying in a straight line by using reinforced cabling, or I could ignore difficult terrain as part of my boost. So I need to worry a little less about I can worry a little bit less about the technicalities of whether I'm using standard movement to fly or if I'm using my boost to fly. Gives you flexibility in the movement department, lets you schmoove, you know? I don't have SEHKMET on here because I'm not SEHKMETing. And I took a lot of these Bristle Crown Flechette launchers because I'm grappling a target and I'm just wearing them down. I'm more or less praying my allies focus them down, but if they don't, that's why we have a nanocarbon sword. Additionally, the integrated Flechette launcher still helps guarantee that I still get this off. I think that this integrated weapon mount Flechette launcher is always pretty good on Blackbeard, even though Titanium, like if you're on LL6 and you're like, I want to get an extra core bonus for Blackbeard, and I've taken a bunch of Zang, and I don't want to get another IPSN, then just take integrated weapon mount so that when you rappel and you ram and you do all that, and you fire your weapon on that turn, then you get a Bristle Crown Flechette launcher that gets bonus damage to your grapple targets. Though 3 kinetic damage does fall off a lot towards later LLs, but you know what I mean. It's nice to have that go off without you needing to worry about dedicating a skirmish to it, even if it isn't as much as a flex weapon mount would be. Yeah, and I wanted to talk about, talking about the Flechette launcher, I wanted to talk about Vanguard, which is another talent that can be used on Blackbeard to great effect, especially on later LLs. Come on. Talents. Let's see. Ignore some of these. These are actually my homebrew and other homebrews. Vanguard. So, rank 1, handshake etiquette. Gain +1 accuracy when using CQB weapons to attack targets within range 3. So that includes a Flechette launcher, it doesn't suffer from engagement, so boom, +1 accuracy right off the bat. You've modified your sensors and ammo to punch through, disregard, or otherwise ignore cover at close range. As long as you have line of sight, you ignore both soft cover and hard cover when using CQB weapons to attack targets within range 3. Less important to you as a Flechette user, but Semper Vigilo is when it really gets to popping off. You may attack with Overwatch using CQB weapons when hostile characters enter, leave, or exit spaces within your threat, no matter whether they started their movement there. So, basically that means that once you have somebody in your bone zone, especially if you used your core power, anybody trying to move out of there has to use a full action to disengage, and anybody trying to push in there to help their allies can't without provoking a reaction from you and you popping your Flechette launcher Ox mount and then dealing 6 damage to everybody, you know? Like, you just suddenly are such a space holder. This space around you becomes a death zone, essentially. And that's like if you want to lean into the flechette launcher. If you really want to do nothing but shotgun Blackbeard, you could take 2 LLs into Blackbeard to get the frame, get the flechette launcher, get the muscle netting, and then forgo LL3 for SEHKMET, and instead go for license level 1 Tortuga, which has the Daisy Cutter, which is a fantastic shotgun that we will discuss on the Tortuga episode. But that's just a little dip into what cross-licensing with a Blackbeard might look like if you wanted to lean into certain license levels that benefit these kinds of things. But in the cases, if you took that, if you wanted to go full shotgun, you would also probably want to end up taking combined arms too, at least. Because if you were to take a shotgun, they do have to deal with engagement, unlike your usual your flechette launcher. The shield of blades, as long as you're engaged, you and allies adjacent to you count as having soft cover. Melee weapons ignore all forms of cover, so this doesn't really defend you against the person you're engaged with unless they are only using ranged weapons. They'd also have a problem with engaged, but it does prevent you from people interceding upon you when you're trying to deal damage to people, right? So say that I have this cataphract all the way back here, right? And this Rainmaker is trying to attack me. I have soft cover, so he has less chance of hitting me, which is nice. It's not amazing, but it's nice. And it works with where you're gonna be. CQB trained, you don't gain difficulty from being engaged, so this means that if you hold somebody adjacent to you with a grapple and you have a shotgun, you don't have any issue with that. There's no problem. Now here's where it really starts to pop off. Storm of Violence. Whenever you hit a character with a melee attack, you gain +1 accuracy on your next ranged attack against them. And whenever you hit a character with a ranged attack, you gain +1 accuracy on your next melee attack against them. This effect doesn't stack. Storm of Violence. Really, really fun. Lets you focus people down really nicely. So, what this means is if I closed it because I'm silly. It's really, really fun. It's really fun, essentially. Starting with whichever one you wanted. So let's say in a hypothetical shotgun Blackbeard world, I had a nanocarbon sword on my heavy melee, I had a main weapon mount dedicated to a daisy cutter, and then I had everything but flechette launchers here. I start my turn with a barrage, and I smack you with my flechette launchers. I then get accuracy on my nanocarbon sword. Let's say that I took like combined arms 3, Vanguard 1 or 2, and then some executioner levels. Then I'm dealing more shit with my heavy weapon. Or I could do my shotgun into my heavy weapon if I don't feel like the bonus damage from these is really worth it. I instead just want to do shotgun into heavy, or heavy into shotgun, whichever one I wanted to hit more, right? Probably the shotgun, because the Daisy Cutter has like 2d6 damage or something. Like they're fucking nutty. And then combining that with Titanomachy, or with melees and rams and whatnot. A ram is a melee attack. A grapple is a melee attack. If you grapple somebody then hit with a shotgun, you're hitting that shotgun at accuracy, including Vanguard accuracy, including the fact that you don't deal with engagement, including accuracy from Vidi, like Veni, like that's like 3 accuracy. The Daisy Cutter has inaccuracy, so then that'd be just 2 accuracy total. It's still amazing. I discussed Black Thumb, but I need to look into it more before I could really say anything confident on it. But yeah, I'm trying to think, are there any other that jump out at me? Skirmisher and Hunter? No, not Hunter. Skirmisher is something you could take. Integrate chafe launchers at the start of your turn. You gain soft cover. You lose it if you attack a person or a character make a save. You're going to be doing that, so you're not going to have it for long. It's for the approach. Lockbreaker, before or after you skirmish, you may move 2 spaces. That's pretty nice. Especially with small threats, like 2 threat and 1 threat. That's very, very nice to have that. It's very, very nice to close a gap if your speed just isn't enough. If your range 5 grapple isn't enough somehow, Lockbreaker can really save you. Or if you just don't want to grapple, you just want to do damage. Weave. The first attack taken as a reaction against you in any round automatically misses. That's amazing on any character, honestly, but it can be very useful, on a Blackbeard. Because if you start your movement towards a character from grappling them, that's a special kind of movement that can be reacted to. Right? And dodging that first reacted to attack, and also maybe if you miss that and then you just want to kidnap somebody, especially on the kidnapper build, this can be very useful, and you just run away with them. If you don't want that to be reacted to, weave is really nice. Or if you want to mitigate all the reactions that happen to you, weave is really nice. I mean, it essentially is just, it becomes a complete shutdown of all reactions, really, because you're grappling them, everybody else's reactions are missing you, like, you're just becoming extremely, extremely annoying. And, don't take Tactician. Alright, I think that's about all. Yeah, I think that's about all. I could talk about some of these homebrew talents that I made, but I don't want to, actually. Oh, you could take Brutal, but Brutal's fun, but Brutal isn't good. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Brutal isn't good. Yeah, this Brutal just isn't good. It's like, Relentless is fine, but it's banking on you losing, essentially, before it starts to become effective. It kind of shores up when you're having bad rolls, but, like, it's not like a, you know, it's like, if you're taking it, you're dedicating 3 whole talent points to just thinking you'll miss. And Predator and Call the Herd all only have a 5% chance of popping off. Well, actually, Call the Herd pops off on any critical hit, so that's not as bad, but Predator requires a nat 20, which is a 5% chance of popping off. Your Predator is really fun, but it depends on the session you're going into. If you're going into like a long-term session, putting 1 talent into Brutal for Predator isn't like the worst idea. It's certainly a bit memey, but when it pops, and it's hype, you know. And especially on something like a Caliban, where its maximum damage dice can look pretty nice. There are other mechs where this, like, 10 damage on Carbon Sword, guaranteed, really nice. But if you were to take, like, the shotgun Caliban that we described with a Daisy Cutter, that's like 12 damage, you know? And then bonus damage also is at max. So if you took Op Cal, which grants you once per round on hit a bonus d6 of damage with a core bonus from GMS, boom, like 18 damage. That turns this dude into goo if he is shredded because he has point shield defense, but you know what I mean. Oh, and the rest of Brawler, because we never jumped past Brawler 1. Because those involve improvised attacks, and Knockout Blow does benefit from grapples and rams and ticks up by those, and you can make that happen a lot with Duelist 3 and then mixed with Brawler 3. You could definitely make an entire build around spamming grapple ram, like getting a grapple, then a Titanomachy Mesh ram, and then or Titanomachy Mesh grapple, and then a fucking Duelist 3 grapple, and then bring up Knockout Blow to like 3 in just 1 turn. But like, Knockout Blow's most powerful effect, which is stun, is on a Hulse. 2d6 plus 2 connect damage is really nice, but it's a full action, and 2d6 plus 2 connect damage is like on the lower end of what a super heavy damage might look like, which is what it's equivalent to, kind of. It's not bad. I would never say it's bad. It's very, very fun. I like Brawler. I like improvised attacks. I like grappling. I like ramming. But if you're getting into Brawler, just know what you're getting into. Alright. Yeah, I think that's about all of them I would want to talk about. We could get more into Exemplar, but I don't think there's really anything else to say about Exemplar. Yeah. Duel to the death would be fun. If you just really, if you're, I don't know if SEHKMET would use this, but if your DM would let you have SEHKMET pop Duel to the death as a free action, that'd be kind of funny. I can see it happening. If you're really ram happy, Juggernaut exists, giving you a lot of ram stuff. Though this wouldn't be the best ram mech. We will get to the Nelson. Nuclear Cavalier, which is bad on you because you have really low heat cap, gains you bonus damage for being in the danger zone, which is just being at or above your heat cap. And yeah, I'm not. Nothing's really coming to mind. You could take Technophile 3, which stops SEHKMET from ever cascading, but that's 3 whole talent dedications to it. And the only other benefit to it is that like once per round you may re-roll a check with the assistance of your NHP. Yeah. And there's the dogs. So I'm gonna call it here. So thank you for joining us on this episode 1 proper of the Pilot's Manual. And for talking with me about the Blackbeard. It's a really, really fun mech. It's really fun. It's really fun. It's just really fun. Like the Blackbeard's biggest problem, if I had to like talk about the frame and its totality and its license levels, is that, well, actually, its license levels are fan-fucking-tastic because those weapons are great. They're good. Anybody can take those and be successful with them. What makes Blackbeard the frame like suboptimal, you could say, is that Blackbeard focuses on grappling, and grappling in Lancer, as you might have noticed in episode 0, is complicated. It has a lot of minutia to it. It can be very, very annoying, and most importantly, and most detrimentally, a lot of it is saves and contests and checks, and we refer to that as sucker save, and sucker save is really, really annoying to have an entire build around because it's feast or it's famine, and a lot of the time it's famine because save targets. I mean, it's better for Blackbeard because it's mostly going to be doing contests, and contests you can mitigate the chance of being fucking awful by dumping into hull as much as you can. But ultimately, if you're doing things like drag down, or if you're using other things that require saves, like its core power, you are going to run into an issue in which sometimes you go to do something and it just falls flat on its face because of one dice roll, and suddenly it is what probably would have been cool is suddenly thwarted entirely by just a lucky scout with like -3 on hull somehow beating your hull save. And that's because Blackbeard doesn't have a good save. You know, if Blackbeard had like a starting save of like 11 and this was 13 maybe, but also like giving the Blackbeard a better hull, better save target may enable some more toxic builds. Like that's the weird balancing point with save target based abilities, is that they're good, so then they mitigate themselves with save targets to make them worse, but then them being bad because of save targets just stops being fun at some point, you know? But don't ever let that stop you from playing the Blackbeard, and do pop your heat cap, and do expose, and do explode, because it's funny, and it's fun, and this game's about having fun, and I think Blackbeard embodies that. So, with that, thank you for coming, thank you for listening to me. Let me check the recording time on this. This has been an hour and 30 minutes of me talking about Blackbeard. Please, if you have any questions in the comments, let me know, and I will answer them as helpfully and specifically as I can possibly manage, because that is how we learn. And thank you. Have a good day.